thank you. You look like a friendly bunch. I hope it stays that way by the end of my little talk here. No, we have, in all seriousness, we work with Rio Grow. We have a really fond relationship with them. Been to a few of these other field days that they've had down here. Walked into groves and stumbled on some sort of funeral out there because Josh digs graves once in a while. But it tells me that's just to show the, growth in topsoil and things like that. But honestly, I truly am glad to be here. I'm less glad to be right here. Obviously, I'm not Frank Mejia. Frank is someone that really wanted to be here, and like Wyatt said, he had a stint of some weirdness going on and had ended up in the hospital. And so here I am. I'm going to do the best I can. And one thing you'll find out is I really am passionate about what we're doing as a company. Oh yeah, I need that too. Now I got to put my glasses on. But I was, when we found out Frank wasn't going to make it, I took a look at his PowerPoint presentation that he was going to do. And I quickly discovered that I could make a really big mess out of what he was trying to say. Okay, because it was way more technical than I'm accustomed to. And as Wyatt said, I come from a dairy background. I've been in the feed business for 42 years, selling mostly to dairies, but some to range cattle. And so when I started thinking about this, and I knew I had to put something together, I knew I couldn't use his presentation, so I just decided to punt it down the road. And then when I don't want to do something, I start getting all philosophical, okay? And so I started thinking about why his presentation wasn't going to be good for me to make and why I come from a different angle. And so I started going back and wondering how we both got here in terms of where we are on, pursuing this regenerative idea. And so I looked at his background, and I'll just give you kind of a biography. And there is a method to my madness here, so just bear with me. But Frank is an interesting guy. Kind of started in the ditches, putting irrigation in and working on some drip irrigation. Finally went to school, kind of got into more of a farm management role. Did about a 10 or 12 year stint with Del Monte, at which time that he spent a lot of time in Costa Rica and places like that. Got a pretty good reputation as the melon guy. And then he ended up, when we met him, managing a pretty large alfalfa exporter in west of Gila Bend in Arizona. And once he met me, his life changed forever, so it was good. But when he was out there, we introduced him to this biological concept. Everything to that point had been more of a conventional type fertilizer program. And once he gets his teeth into something, it just goes, okay? He started doing bricks testing. He started digging more plants. And he turned that farm around, and he had some terrific results. My background, and Wyatt said it like it was a bad thing, but I am from the dairy side of it, okay? But, so I sold feed products, but the reality is, the companies I work for were feeding bugs then too, okay? We always said we don't feed the cow, we feed the bugs. So the cow's rumen and soil have a lot in common, okay? There's a huge bug population that wants to work for you as long as you treat them right, okay? And so ranchers, especially in Arizona, he talks about, I forget how many mother cows per acre Austin said, but in Arizona, it might be 200 acres for a pair of cows, So I had a lot of respect for the ranchers because they showed me something. They know that every year, whatever comes out of that ground is what they're going to grow their animals on. And so what they do is they started feeding molasses, and then they feed some urea. And the reason they do those two things is the combination of those two products in a rumen, they kind of spike at the same time. So sucrose from molasses, it ferments really quickly. And then urea, it degrades very quickly, almost at the same level as the sugar does. And so what that does is makes a very happy bug population. If you throw a little bit of yeast culture in there. It even increases the colony forming units better. So it's not that crazy that we're making this transition from the dairy to the soil. We're basically doing the same thing in the soil. We're trying to make a more healthy, more robust microbe population so that anything we throw at them could be better used, okay? So I'm going to go through this PowerPoint presentation, hopefully, and it's not going to be highly technical. I'm more of a practical, how can this apply to you guys in the field? One thing about Austin, he did a great job. I don't know why he says he's not a speaker. I think he's a natural. But when farmers talk, I listen. Even on the dairy side, you have to respect that these guys know how to get milk out of a cow. Farmers know how to get things out of the ground. We just have to find ways to do it better, maybe make their life easier, cut the cost down, and take better care of the soil for their future. So I'm going to go through these, and you will see a little bit of a dairy-centric connection too, but just bear with me on that. I'll explain where that comes from. Okay, which button? Okay, there we go. QLF, this is not a plug-o-meter, but I just want to tell you, they had the same kind of path I had. They do about 1.2 million tons of molasses a year. It's been almost all in the feed industry, and that's why it's called quality liquid feeds. And now we have QLF agronomy, okay? So the ownership said, we have this a product we're basic in, it's Louisiana sugarcane molasses. What else can we do with this product? What else besides animal feed can we do with it? Because there's plenty of it. And so he put it out to everybody, and a few ideas came up. Some were good, some were bad. It worked well in wastewater treatment because there's biology that happens there. One less successful one was in Wisconsin. You know, there's a lot of ice on the road, so they figured we could make a product that's not as caustic as what they're putting out there and still do the trick. Problem is, there's a lot of deer in Wisconsin, and they like to lick the stuff off the road, so that was a problem. So we kind of put that on the back burner. But one thing that did stick was the agronomy products because of the correlation between the feed and the field. So anyway, so the ownership has really gotten behind it. I mean, really taken a personal involvement in it. So we changed this building, what used to be one of those Wisconsin supper clubs, and we made this really cool agronomy research center. And so here we have, we have a really cool growth chamber. That gives us a lot of options and kind of mimics different growing conditions and temperatures. Built a nice greenhouse, and we have our super guy running it. And then we have our own tank farm where we're doing our own research on our products. And within the building too, there's a really state-of-the-art lab too, so we're improving that all the time too. But all I'm saying is, our ownership sees where agronomy is going. He sees where farming is going, and he wants to be a part of that. So that's the only reason. I'm not trying to make a plug for anything right now. I mean, every fiber of my being wants to make a plug for our products, but we'll do that another time. Guy in our neighborhood up there, Gary Zimmer, there's a connection with us that our VP of agronomy used to work with him at Midwestern Bioag, and he's very outspoken. I don't know if you ever heard the guy talk, but he's like an evangelist, you know, when it comes to biological farming. Very, very good. But this is what he talks about. When you talk about carbon, all carbon isn't the same, right? I mean, you got the green, the brown, the black. So you got manure, you got humics, and then you got the brown, which is our carbohydrate types from our sugar source. We had a good friend in Russell Taylor, who's actually very involved in the humic trade, and he just said when you can compare a humic acid and cane molasses, it's like comparing apples to compost. Okay, and he calls it high octane microbe. He's not saying anything wrong with humic acids. There's all kinds of them, but they work different ways. And so we kind of start positioning ourselves as a carbohydrate, even though it is a carbon, that we give a food source to these microbes. One of the low-hanging fruits that we have is nitrogen use efficiency. I think it's just ripe for the picking, so to speak, because it's just a hot topic. And so Wyatt touched on it earlier, but everybody else is going to talk about it too. How can we use less synthetic fertilizers? How can we, first do no harm? Like the Hippocratic Oath says, the doctor said, that's what he says. In essence, we're saying, before you try any of these other things, don't screw it up worse, okay? So if we can even mitigate some of the bad side effects of these synthetic fertilizers by cutting back on it, we're going to be money ahead right out of the gate. That is me right there, by the way. But this is in Casa Grande, Arizona, and this was silage grown for a dairy there. And we had phenomenal results there by using the carbon-based program. And in this instance, we did use a starter, a carbon-based starter as well. But we also displaced 25% of his nitrogen. And then there is a calculation which involves yield plus quality, and you can come up with a milk per acre, okay? This is very useful to nutritionists. And so what they're saying, they're getting more feed value, and it has a dollar figure attached to it. You can actually take it to the bank, so to speak. This is why I think that this carbohydrate source that we're talking about is so important. That nitrogen doesn't sit still. It goes up there, it goes down there, it goes sideways, it's everywhere, and except where you really want it to be used the most. And so when you put the carbohydrate with it, it keeps it from volatilizing, it helps keep it from leaching, and so that's where we can claim nitrogen efficiency. And a lot of these I'm just going to blow through. It's just going to show some tests we did. In this one in particular, it's various rates of UAN plus our flagship product is called Boost. It's a liquid carbon-based fertilizer. And you can see we won every time, okay? And we did it with less nitrogen. So we had an average of 220 bushels an acre in these tests. This is a 3-year average too, just so you understand, with less nitrogen. So you're getting better results with less. This is some other tests we did where they could measure nitrate leaching into the water. We did it with less applied in, got an increase in yield, and everybody has to talk about this. I think Kent said something about this too. We don't talk about anything or any results unless we can show a return. You got to have a return on investment. I mean, we all love what we do, but in the end, we're here to make a profit, to make a living. You have to do that. We can all want to do better for the ground, the planet, or whatever, but we have to make a living because that's why we're doing it. This is kind of our definition. It extends the life of your N. And like I said before, you have a lot of salt in these fertilizers, so we want to mitigate some of that and just keep it from going into the atmosphere. Wyatt showed earlier that you can, and you all have probably done this, stuck your nose in a bottle of the 32 and you smell that ammonia. We used to do this little test all the time. It's so simple because, well, in grade school I was very good at show and tell. Okay, so that was very good for me. So you just mix a little Boost in there, swirl it around, integrates right away, and that ammonia smell is gone. And so why is that? Is it just masking the smell, or is there something physiological taking place that's making that happen? Well, that is what's happening. You're keeping that ammonia from volatilizing and losing it in there. You're keeping the nitrogen where you need it, and that's why you can be more efficient. Another cool thing about out here in the West with our high pH soils, you're also, every time you put 32 in the ground, you got about a 7.5% pH from the get-go. But just in different inclusions of Boost, carbohydrate source, it drops that pH pretty dramatically. So you're also not adding a more high pH product into the soil. You're actually lowering, getting the benefit of lower pH too. A lower pH can have a lot of good effects on things like herbicide applications too. I don't want to leave organic people out because they still have to be efficient with their nitrogen. And so this was a pretty intense study using our sole organic version of these liquid carbon-based fertilizers with chicken manure. And across the board, you can see there's a very good return on combining those. Nothing wrong with chicken litter. I mean, it's a very common source of for organic growers, and so you still want to get as much out of it as you can. And by the way, I tend to talk fast, and I don't even think Wyatt's going to have to hold up the 15-minute sign. So if anybody in the meantime wants to stop me with a comment or a question, I can't tell you that I know all the answers, but
It's kind of a comment. There is a study done by Dr. David Johnson.
David Johnson, huh?
You may know him. He did a presentation where he showed that applying fertilizer to a crop that he was studying, he never found any yield increase by applying nitrogen. Then he did another one, nothing, applying phosphorus. Then he applied potassium, and there was no increase in the yield. So he went back, he said, well, he did not know the answer. He went back and did the analysis for the microbiology in the soil.
Right.
And that's where he got a response that was causing the yield increase, microbiology in the soil, not exactly nitrogen. Or phosphorus or potassium.
I think it's becoming more and more apparent. There's even mainstream universities that are heavily involved in corn growth, like University of Illinois. I think they came out with a study that showed like 67% of the N requirement is in the soil. Right. And so that's what we're doing. We're unlocking things that are already there. We poured fertilizer, whether it's phos or nitrogen or whatever, into that soil all these years. And because it was relatively cheap. And so now, when we come in there too, and I'm sure that it works the same way with a lot of biological products, if we can enhance that growth and unlock what's already in there before we put more on. But you know what else is happening too, and I'm kind of going off the skids here, but there's better forms of testing what's in the soil, what you have there. Before it was, we have, this crop removes this much, so we put this much in, and that's how we figured it, right? But now there's so many better tests. I mean, and I think it's changing all the time. Even some like our DNA test or something like that, they're coming out. It's crazy. But the better, and you kind of have to do it. So what can we do to kind of mitigate, maybe even lessen the use of herbicides, or certainly make them more efficient? And so what we've done is when we apply, and like I said, we can lower the tank pH too with these herbicides to a more effective range in how they work. But so we've done a lot of testing, both third party and within our own house, on combining Boost with different combinations of herbicides. And again, we look for the ROI on this. It can kill the weeds, but it still has to pay the bills, right? So certain times a year, we get these pictures all the time from our RSAs out there. This is a 30 hour where they were treated, and then on the side with Boost, it's just not taking the hit. It's just not getting the burn. It's not knocking the crap out of it. And so that's where your ROI is coming from, by the way. Same with fungicides. It just seems to keep that plant healthier, stronger, more resistant. So when you do these intense treatments, it's not going to falter. Yeah.
I don't think most people know what Boost is. Can you explain?
Boost is kind of, well, like I said, I wasn't trying to be a plug guy here. I kind of respect everybody. Thank you, Wyatt. Boost is a kind of our flagship product, and we call them liquid carbon-based fertilizers. The analysis is a 4032S, okay? It's a molasses-based product, and I want to emphasize molasses-based because I don't want anybody to go out here and say, oh, he said you can just use molasses. That is a mess. If you try to do that, that's a mess. But what we combined is basically the carbohydrate source We use it as a lower pH product. And then we use a yeast culture product in there as well. And what we do is, we love this product because it plays well with a lot of stuff. Like I'm showing you just a few of them, but I think any dealer out there or even growers, they may say, I like using this, can I mix it with this and put it out with the Boost? And so it is a biological product, but it's a food. I see it as a food for everything else. And like I said, it's a conduit too that you can carry. If you create a healthier bug environment, when you do these other things, whether they're things that are kind of harsh or just add other nutrients, it could create a lot better efficiency by keeping that bug population healthy. Did that answer your question? Okay. Sorry, I did that one. Oops. The study we did too, it tells you what else is happening when you are doing these herbicide applications. There's a cost to it beyond the cost of the dollars and cents. It takes more energy and more nutrients to make these effective, but it's also reducing growth, and you saw that in those pictures. And so there is a benefit to combining these products. And so, sorry. This is just a little cross section, but if you can see that we did a number of different combinations with and without Boost, and in each time the yield was improved, and hence the ROI. This is nothing to look at real close, but this is something else that we put a lot of thought into, is how the tank should be mixed. The mixing order, things to watch out for. The only thing that we ever had some problem was when the water itself was inconsistent between one grower and another. You could have the exact same mix, but that water is different, it can change it. So you have to be aware of that. But our guy Anthony in the greenhouse, he does all these tests, and so by the time it gets to you, even though we still would want you to do a jar test, he's got a lot of it figured out. So this is what I talked to you about before, but there is this. I did not draw this picture. I mean, I know it looks like a fifth grader did, but it does kind of exemplify the commonality between what we do on the feed side and on the soil side. Same thing. We're chasing the same thing. We're feeding bugs on both situations. Okay. Now, I mentioned before there's a little bit dairy-centric slides coming on here, so just bear with me on us, because since we are a feed and agronomy company, we finally, after years, just knew the other ones existed, okay? The feed people it was like running the same umbrella, in that nobody knew that we could maybe work together, you know? So we finally had this young, really intelligent gal that was a ruminant nutritionist, but she had a great interest in the agronomy side too. And that was the first time we actually did a trial that involved the agronomist and the nutritionist for the dairy, the field manager, the farm manager, the dairy manager, and we got data that showed what influence higher quality forages can have on the bottom line at the dairy farm, okay? So I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but I just want to show you that Evan Hansen is one of our RSA's agronomists. Kai is our senior dairy specialist. They got together and they did this for the Central Plains Dairy Expo because there is a really cool connection on why you should do this. They just ask these very few questions. You know, why? Why do better forages lead to better profitability? And so this is a really good market for us to get into. There's actually a great market for us to get into, because if you deal with nutritionists, feed nutritionists, if they have really good forage, they look really good. If they have really bad forage, they look really bad. So they have an interest themselves in making sure that the forage that's coming into that dairy to feed the cow is a higher quality, because there's a real effect on the bottom line. And the effect comes from, if you can get more out of your forage, then you can purchase less other feed products in the market. So it does actually have a cool ROI, not only for the grower, but for the dairy. It just talks about the rate of digestion, NDF digestibility. I'm not here to give you a lesson in dairy nutrition, but just continue to make that connection, and why we need to pursue this, because it's going to make everybody better. Now, I would say, I got a question for the audience, okay? If we got the dairy looking at their bottom line, and they're going to feed their cows better, and then the manure is going to go out. Wait, I just gave the answer. The thing that's missing in this discussion is what keeps coming from a dairy. I mean, there's an unstopping large supply of manure coming out of there, either by way of dry manure or effluent coming from the dairy. So that actually is another opportunity for us to maximize the decomp on that manure, and actually help as a buffer against all that effluent going on in the field continually, because that will seal it off, you know, so it doesn't make it very useful. Like I said, on the dairy side, it just more digestible forage makes the bottom line better, and so that's just another area where we're trying to look. The other areas that we think that we serve a good role, and I would tell that any of us that are coming on to a farm operation and talking to the grower, we need to bring value in as many places as we can. I don't think it's good enough to say, you know, let's just look at yield alone. You know, listen, I think we got to look at input cost comparisons, but then also, here's a few other areas that we've had some good success in. The drift control is actually a very appealing thing to a lot of people. We can even do aerial applications. So, but it is compatible with a lot of things as well. And I think as we put them together, we're finding more and more benefit to the carbon-based approach. Oops. Okay, probably a lot of you have heard of this, Dr. Dijkstra. He kind of came up with this little graph. You've heard of him, right? Okay. I'm not saying it's written in stone. I think there are people that may question how exact that is. But something's happening out there when Brix is higher. We're getting really good feedback from growers saying they're using less pesticide passes on a lot of different crops, from spider mites to aphids. Certainly on alfalfa, aphids on alfalfa, we've seen such good results. And like I said, our MO is to have a partnership with growers, with dealers, where there's a two-way dialogue, because I would tell you 75% of the data we have, it is generated from growers. They're out there, they're thinking people, you know, they know what they're talking about, and they find different ways to do it, and they get different effects. And so I believe just a healthier plant, which a Brix level is an indicator of a healthier plant. I think it just goes to show that that would be a benefit as far as mitigating some of your pesticide passes. This was a guy, hold on. Okay, never mind that guy. Now this is about as technical as I get, because not this. Okay, you've heard of mucilage, rhizosheath, okay? A hot topic now is water, you know, and like Todd said, it's really water availability too. But if we can hold more water because of this stuff, I don't even know where that is. Okay, you can see the ball of the root here. If you can get more of these feeder roots to hold more soil, it holds more water and holds other nutrients. And I think that is going to help with the overall water efficiency. There, I didn't know that, but anyway, it holds a lot of water. This here, I just threw this one in because I was involved in this. This is one of those trials we did with a grower on sorghum. Everything was looking great. We stuck with it the whole time, measured things, plant growth. Came time to harvest, and the custom harvester had come in and harvested it a day early, right? So we come out to this field to get our information, and all we see is a bunch of stalks out there. So I was with an agronomist, and we just said, well, let's go dig up some stumps, you know? And so we kind of tried to do it as scientifically as we could, but kind of put a grid out there, went out and tried to get a representative sample. And I'm going to tell you, I washed these stumps, and there's a real difference. The treated, you could not get that mud off of there. The untreated, you could literally just shake it around in the water, and it would drop off. That you had to pick that mud out of there, and then after we got them all cleaned up, there's about a 25% weight difference between the two as well. So I do believe that this is where everything happens. So, and it's just about plant health. We have a good starter product. The only difference, that's a good starter product there on the left. But this is a carbon base. It has the carbohydrates in it. And I think we always get a better start. And if you get a better start, it's like a calf. You take care of that calf from the beginning, he's going to be stronger in the long suit. So this is something we look at as well. So we actually stumbled on the drift control aspect of it, but we were in Nebraska, and so they actually have this wind tunnel. And so they did these tests out there. And it is a legitimate drift control product. If you used it for nothing else, it's going to help with that. But you got drift control product is providing some nutrients too. I don't know what that error is for, sorry. I don't even know who that guy is. So it's a little confusing sometimes about what we're actually measuring. But this is it was a Roundup treatment, then Roundup with 1 gallon of Boost, and Roundup with 2 gallons of Boost. So this measurement here is droplet sizes, okay? So the smaller, and it's hard for me to explain, but the droplet size is very, it's like more drops per acre or less drops per acre. So if you have a smaller drop, it's going to be more overspray. And then, just to get her at 11:30 last night. So, but one thing is, when people think of molasses, they think of it as thick, sticky stuff. But the reality is, there's a lot of product going on, boost going on by aerial application out there, and pilots love it. They can see where it's going. It's a sticker marker, and the coverage is awesome. We did we did quite a bit of alfalfa trials. This is in Wisconsin, but we've done a lot out in the West as well. But this here, it did have the yield advantage. This was pretty intensive. We had a lot of acres on this. But the increase on milk per ton, again, like we talked about, that's where this return on investment comes on a per acre basis. Out west, we did some new planting alfalfa too, and it was striking to me that even at this height, you're still getting different root growth, not just a long tap root, but you're starting to get feeder roots even at a young age. Oops. Same thing on corn silage. Good comparison here. Whenever you see a yield increase and a quality increase, that's how you get a high milk per acre. And so that's very significant there. And this has been done numerous times. It's just one example. This guy, talking about the pest side of it, his name is Dr. Gary Dick. He's a research agronomist, but he's an entomologist. And he worked for a company called Tri-Rotor, which is a large crop dusting company in Kansas. And so, but he made a pretty bold statement because they always have this problem with aphids and weasels. And a lot of things they do are really expensive or they're very harsh. And so he just believes that using Boost in this situation has really mitigated a lot of the aphid problems, and was willing to put it in writing. I think this is a question that every farmer should be asked or ask themselves. Because it's not just, it's talking about your own personal fertility programs and how it affects the soil health. It's a good question to ask because problems are going to come. I mean, there's going to be drought, there's going to be more water, less water, heat, all these things, but how resilient is it? And what's going to make it more resilient when these troubles come? So, last slides really are these. The reason I'm bringing this up is because when Frank Mejia, who is not here, was a customer of ours, he sent us these pictures. These are plants he dug himself, and I think these are significant in that it's probably a good reason why he's taken such an interest in making a career out of soil health and trying to find all these different ways to do it. So he sent me this one too, but I feel like this was like, oh, you know, when he saw this, because it just is an enormous amount of feeder risk for an alfalfa plant. So I really don't have much else. So if you have any questions or comments, I'm sure we'll try to answer them. And that's about all I got. So, all yours.